it's skyrocketed. So a $600 pension, 1050.
Why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
Million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3 minutes. And people are going to start rioting.
Good job.
Million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3 minutes.
We will make America safe again. Yes, together we will make
For this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3 minutes.
All righty. So, apart from muting my screen, we are live. You love it. You have to love when things don't go according to plan. Waiting for my camera to come up. So, once again, I'm excited to have a guest join us for RTD Live Talk. And so, I can't see myself just yet. There I go. Okay. So, welcome to RTD Live Talk. It's Thursday night, the 12th day of the month of July. We are halfway through the year. And I'm excited to have someone join us who's going to share with us what I believe is a very important topic that a lot of people, unfortunately, haven't been paying much attention to because it's been more so on the back end of all the mainstream news that's talked about, but it's going to be very important for our futures. And it has to do with the idea of artificial intelligence and robotics and all the things that have been very disruptive along with the whole cryptocurrency line and everything of that nature. So I want to welcome Kenneth Ameduri from the crushthestreet.com. He also has a YouTube channel, very popular on YouTube. So, Kenneth, thank you for joining us here to share with us a lot of information and your research on artificial intelligence. Welcome.
Mike, it's good to be live with you. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So I want to, as we give it a second for people to chime in and get online. And as always, it's a live stream situation. So the goal is to interact with the audience as much as possible so that they can have a voice in what's happening around them and share what's on their mind. So we're going to, ask you some questions. And as well, if anyone else has questions in regards to artificial intelligence, the economy, cryptocurrencies, Kenneth is very, very well versed in a variety of subject matters because he's been covering this for several years now. So he knows his stuff. So with that being the question, the number above me is 833 Live RTD. And so as we get into the conversation, feel free to call in and just ask questions and so we can all educate each other here. So without further ado, Kenneth, I want to actually get into more of some of the things that led you down this pathway of freeing your mind from what I consider the monetary matrix. And how did you arrive at this point where you're now educating and trying to, just spread the truth in as far as what we were not taught in school and things of that nature?
Well, it's a powerful thing, and I think it's going to be even more important as we continue to go along here. The internet is a beautiful thing, and here we are starting our own platforms and having started our platforms via the internet, via YouTube. I know there's a lot of controversy right now with YouTube censoring people, but from a glass half full perspective, I'm still very grateful for what YouTube has afforded us. It's given us an opportunity to really share information and not for information to just come from, just a couple sources, a couple centralized sources, but rather us being able to share information on our level, really power to the people. And I really appreciate that. And so it was in the 2008 financial crisis. I was, really excited about getting passionate about real estate and investing. And I was hoping to buy my first house and really be a part of all of this money that everyone was making, up until that time in real estate. And sure enough, I graduated right into that whole mess. Didn't buy any real estate because it was a complete disaster. And ultimately, it was a good thing that I didn't buy at the top and deal with a big bubble on my hands, but it caused me to really look into what was going on. It led me to precious metals. Ultimately, I came across Bitcoin. We covered that largely at Crush the Street quite a bit. And, we're all about following the trends. And right now, the trend is artificial intelligence. This is going to be huge. We think it's going to be one of the greatest jobs disruptors in history until we have the next greatest jobs disruptor. But for now, we think this is going to be a major jobs disruptor, and we're just about educating people. That's what I do at Crush the Street, and that's what I'm passionate about. And having done and been involved in the markets, having actively invested, having actively purchased real estate since then, my goal is to share what I'm doing with my readers, and together we make money. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Right. Sounds good there. So I do agree completely. And so in just, preparing for our conversation tonight, the biggest thing is, because that's one thing, artificial intelligence is one thing I do not cover a lot of, just because I geared towards more of the economic/politics side of things and how those converge and merge and how they're crashing or crumbling at the seams right now. But so in typing in artificial intelligence, just to see what pops up. And so within typing in those two words there, it says about 283 million results came up in 0.63 seconds. So clearly this subject matter is very important to a lot of people because it's everywhere on the net. And so before we get into any further, let's share with us exactly what is artificial intelligence. Give it, of course, I think of robots, and then also the fact that, they're artificially intelligent. Just putting those two words together, just give us some foundation as to where it came from and how we arrived here, and just, take us back to the beginning from what you know.
Well, I can tell you it's basically just technology getting more and more efficient, technology getting smarter. If you go into the 1800s, it took 90% of our economy just to grow food. 90% of our GDP was agriculture. And today that's only 2%. But that's because technology has gotten better, and we're leveraging technology so the rest of the economy can do other things. But, we're going to be getting to a point now where machine learning, these machines getting smarter and smarter, are not going to just be doing menial jobs. They're not going to just be flipping burgers. They're not going to just be doing laborious, repeating jobs in a factory, but really going into high level, very important roles in our society. And when you consider that the internet is this platform with, all historical human knowledge, if you will, this database of all historical human knowledge, we as humans have the ability to tap into that. The problem is we're limited. We can't constantly update. We can't constantly learn everything that's happening and stay up to date on that. But a computer, on the other hand, connected to the web, connected on this decentralized platform, can constantly update. And that's where things get interesting. That's where we could really see computers outpace humans. And just like Elon Musk says, how can, a human compete with a computer? And I don't think that's going to happen. And we've seen that with the game of Go, the AlphaGo, the Google's AlphaGo, that learned this ancient Chinese game of Go, which is kind of like checkers or chess. It's like a board type of game, but there's more combinations on this game than there are atoms in the world. And so what that means is it can't be pre-programmed. You can't pre-program every move. So what they did to teach this machine to play the game was create a platform that basically replicated the human brain so it can learn. And they had it play itself 10 million times, and it got very good. So good that it actually beat the best player at this ancient Chinese game of Go. And it really goes to show how smart computers are getting. And I think it's going to have major implications in things going forward. We've already seen the first artificially intelligent robot get its citizenship in Saudi Arabia. So things are moving along, and I think it's going to have major implications going forward.
Yeah, very true. So from that explanation there, a lot of things popped in my mind. So I'm gonna try to remember one by one. But the first one is just the fact that you use the word disruptive, which means that it's going to be, it's will this disruption be something that will be, what will it end up being more beneficial for humanity, or will it come back to bite us in the butt? Because if you look at all those movies in Hollywood, and at the end of the day, the robots are the ones that are somehow evil, and they are the ones that do very disruptive things as far as murders and things of that nature. If they can teach themselves, then do you foresee a time where they say we no longer need humans and they want to do their own thing? And because if they can get smarter and they program to get smarter, that could be some type of end result. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely begs the question. If all of a sudden there are no need for humans and these machines are so smart, they're like, wait a minute, all of these humans are serving no purpose. So, from an efficiency perspective, in a robot's mind, AI starts to say, well, I think the best thing to do is start eliminating people for, the sake of the world's humanity. I suppose that's conceivably possible, but I don't have some sort of dire prediction that that's going to happen. And I hope that doesn't happen. There's this constant question on how AI is going to respond. Are they going to make always efficient decisions, or are they going to also be able to make efficient decisions balanced with morality? You have driverless cars now. And what's going to happen when you have a lose-lose scenario, such as a child walking in front of the car? Does the driverless car decide to potentially swerve around the child but hit people on the sidewalk, or what have you? I mean, there are going to be these questions that we don't know. And we also have military starting to implement artificial intelligence. Now, we haven't had an AI robot pull the trigger on a gun to kill somebody, but that is potentially coming. And again, how do we know what the implications of that are going to be? And that's a really powerful thing when you consider that putting the kill switch in the hands of a robot, that is a really significant thing, and it's coming. And that's one of the reasons why at Crush the Street we produced a documentary. We're talking about these things. We don't know what we don't know. But I think it's something to discuss. It's important to discuss because it is coming. We're going to be sacrificing our privacy for convenience in ways that we haven't even conceived of yet. People aren't even thinking about what's going to happen. There's going to be chips that they're going to try to put in people's brains. And I know this is really down the rabbit hole, and many people are going to it's going to trigger biblical sort of prophecies. But this is coming. I mean, they're going to be tapping into our neural networks and attempting to combine humans with AI. So, not necessarily humans versus AI, but if all of a sudden you can have a chip to improve your knowledge so that you can compete against AI, I think that is coming. But I want to also suggest that it's not just one thing. I mean, AI is going to be developed in many different avenues. It's going to be for certain sectors and the military, and we're going to see it used all over medicine. And you ask me, are we going to see a net benefit or a net negative for humanity? I think honestly it's going to be both. I think a lot of people are going to be grateful when they have cancer detected early, or diabetes detected early, heart disease, maybe some sort of heart failure detected because of some sort of monitoring that's happening in real time because of artificial intelligence. And again, it's going to be a huge sacrifice of privacy, right? They're going to know where you are at all times, and you can almost say that's already happening. But I think this is something that's going to have a lot of good and a lot of bad, maybe some bad. It's going to disrupt complete sectors. I mean, the driver, for instance, is the number one job in America. There's more people driving than doing any other job in America at the moment. And we already know driverless cars are coming. So the threat of being disrupted absolutely is on the horizon here. So it's something people need to think about. And that's why we produced a documentary at Crush the Street. I highly recommend people check it out. If you want to get the report that we did for this, go to crushthestreet.com/AI. And we discussed, again, we don't know what we don't know, but we discuss ways in which you can prepare and start to wrap your mind around what is going to happen in regards to artificial intelligence.
That's a very good explanation there. So, and also I'll include that link below the video when we're finished. But as you're saying those things, some of the things that came to mind about artificial intelligence and just how it's here, and we're going to be very willing and accepting of it, because it will. Everything is always presented as being convenient, as you hinted at earlier, as well as very making our lives easy. It's just human nature that we want to save ourselves the difficult route in preference for the easier route. And so the very first thing that came to mind was our cell phones. And so now we have the Android, where, even my children, just they talk out loud to Siri and all types of things. That is AI. That's artificial intelligence programming. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, to a certain degree, we've become more efficient as a society. Not everybody has the ability. It was only high-level managers and people in well-off positions who were able to afford assistance, for instance. But now you have, Alexas and Googles and your phones. You're just talking into it. Say, remind me of this. Schedule this. What's the traffic going to be like? Book this. Buy this. Purchase this. Put this on my calendar. And this is now available for virtually everyone, because technology has afforded this. It's made this role that was otherwise very expensive, having to purchase human labor, now accessible for, maybe $150, $200 purchase, right? One of these personal assistants, these Alexas. And again, it is a sacrifice of privacy for your convenience. I mean, we know these machines are listening to our conversations, and if the NSA wants to ever gather that information, they could at any time they want. And they know what we're doing. They know when we use the restroom. They know how many times we look at our phone, and our patterns, how many times we leave our house. And all the things we do is stored on these databases. And, again, I'm going to keep saying it. It's a sacrifice of privacy for convenience. And I see good and bads, and it's just going to constantly happen. There's nothing, we can do about technology moving forward, but as humans, we can start to at least understand what some of the risks are and where things are going, and maybe, where to kind of put the brakes on and what to accept going forward. But it is inevitable, because just because we're not going to adopt something doesn't mean the rest of society won't. And, you have to balance, being a relic versus staying with the trend and not becoming irrelevant in society. So, it's a lot of implications in regards to this. And, I honestly believe that, coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, there's a good chance that, we have 50% of current jobs in America, that become at risk of being displaced by AI in the future here. And I think that's something worth talking about.
Right. Very true. Now, I assume that those jobs you're referring to are those in the service sector, and are they on the less skilled side, more the manual labor type jobs? You mentioned trucking. What other industries that will probably be impacted right away, or probably being disrupted right now?
Well, I could tell you, just an hour ago, I was trying to book a hotel room or change a booking, and I was talking to a computer on the phone that was being very personable. I had an issue with my cable the other day, and I was talking to a machine that would listen to what I'm saying, use patterns and things that were programmed into it, learn, infer, and implement. And, we're starting to see AI move into jobs that are not just minimum wage jobs, that are jobs that take technical skills, sales jobs that, might be six-figure salaries. And, if you consider like an analytics, this is where we're going to see AI go into as well. Somebody that takes a stock portfolio, monitors stocks, monitor PE ratios, and a portfolio in general. An AI computer could watch your portfolio, what it's doing at 2:30 in the afternoon, and compare it to what the S&P 500 did at 2:30, and start making real life decisions, and take over six-figure analyst jobs. I mean, this type of stuff is coming. And if you even talk about high frequency trading, I mean, 90% of the market now is estimated to be high frequency trading. Again, algorithms, AI, billions and billions of dollars based on AI. So we're seeing this start to come. We're seeing this happen. It's hard to imagine this, but AI replacing plumbers, electricians, and jobs that were otherwise done by humans. And I think that's a little bit a ways away, because I mean, you really got to have a complex machine that's able to really go in, assess a situation, and really do what needs to be done on a very customizable level there. But it's coming. The technology is there, and I think people need to be aware of it. And I think the best thing you can do is be on the side of the robot. Whether that's using AI in your business, so you're leveraging it, staying in front of the trend, investing in AI technologies, or maybe just really anticipating sectors that aren't going to be as impacted by AI going forward.
Yeah, and that would be, yeah, that's just thinking off the top of my head, like what will not be impacted? Like the goal, anything that requires time, energy, and effort, and some type of skill set, sounds like you can program some type of algorithm or code into it to do some type of job of any nature. So I'm thinking, like, what might be the best option? Might be to be one of the programmers. That might be the ultimate job. But
what I would tell people though, and I've been telling people this, is sometimes it really does come back to the basics. There's obviously the technological side that you can stay in front of, but for instance, housing and food, and things that people need, the essentials. These are things that if you can continue to service and be invested in and be a part of, that is something we are always going to need. So I think that's something to consider too. It's not always just trying to be out in front of the trend, which I highly believe in, but also keep in mind, if you can acquire real estate, acquire precious metals, and be positioned in the essentials, that's going to be important too. But I feel like in many ways, in the middle, that's where things are going to get crushed. I mean, and then we're already seeing that the middle class is shrinking. And the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And so I think it's important, if you can, to acquire assets and be in front of the trends here. And if you can do that, you'll position yourself the best as you can.
Yeah, very good point there. Now, so just for those who might be tuning in now, my guest is Kenneth Ameduri. He's from CrushTheStreet.com. And so, as always, I want to see if there's any questions out there. And so I'm going to read a couple things here, Kenneth, if you don't mind. Someone said, it says, "Hey, Mike, please ask Kenneth about the Bitcoin to BC to Bitcoin cash ratio." It says currently the valuation fluctuates from 8 or 9 to 1. It says the fork was 10 to 1. Is this significant? And does he consider BTC and its forks to be, I guess, valid?
Well, I'll tell you this. I sold a large portion of my Bitcoin starting at 10,000 and selling up until about 17,500. And, I obviously was part of the Bitcoin Cash fork. I had my Bitcoin Cash, and it's not something that I continue to accumulate. I'm not, particularly a fan of Roger Ver. But I will tell you now that Bitcoin has come back. I like Bitcoin at $6,200. I liked it at $5,800. I like it, below $8,000. And, and I'm getting my position back here into Bitcoin in a large way. And I like these prices right now. As far as the reason I'll stick with Bitcoin is because the other ones are very experimental, in my opinion. Bitcoin, I believe, is going to prove to be the king. It was birthed out of the 2008 financial crisis. It doesn't have a founder. I think it has qualities that we'll see forever. And especially in this time, in this bear market environment where we're going to see a huge shakeout in the sector. I mean, a real washout of many of the different altcoins. I think it's going to be very beneficial to be in the granddaddy of them all, and that is Bitcoin. And again, no specific financial advice, but I can tell you what I'm doing, and that is purchasing Bitcoin.
Right. Now, my question for you in regards to that same subject matter there. So by Bitcoin being the first one, it has everyone's attention. And so from that, there's been a lot of other coins and tokens to be created that has proven to be very disruptive to the banking sector. And so when you say Bitcoin is a founding one, will it be the only one to survive, or do you see a time where there's going to be some ones that can be utilized as the disruptive type of technology, since they're using a blockchain and all the artificial intelligence that may go on top of that eventually? What are your thoughts about some of that stuff?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely possible. But I'm looking at macro trends at the moment. And for me, it wasn't a very, very specific sort of trade. It was being a part of what Bitcoin is doing for the community. And that's the reason that I believe Bitcoin's going to be the one. These other ones, I think, are just speculative. That's the problem with a lot of these other ones. We don't know. I think there are going to be, lottery tickets in the cryptocurrency space, but I believe that Bitcoin is going to continue to be the gold standard. It has that first mover advantage, and it has that ability to, I think, withstand the test of time. It's already done that to many degrees. It's got, an arsenal of some of the best developers out there. And I'm very biased, Mike. So I believe that Bitcoin is going to be the one. I'm not against investing in some of the other ones, but I just believe that if you are going to do it, and especially if you're a little more risk adverse, cryptocurrency is going to be a very volatile space, even in Bitcoin. Yeah. But if you are a little more risk adverse, I think your safe bet will be to be invested in Bitcoin. That first mover advantage is going to be something very powerful for years to come. And it very much is something that can do a lot of what the other ones can do. You talked about the banking sector. If you want to be your own bank, you open up a wallet, you put Bitcoin in it, you are your own bank. When fees got high, Bitcoin started to evolve, and they started to deal with it. I know there were issues that Bitcoin had along the way, but I think because of its resilience and its anti-fragile nature, that's the one that I would suggest people to be in. And if you want to sleep at night, own Bitcoin.
Yeah. Now, and also in the question there, someone referenced precious metals. And so I've heard a lot of other commentators out here mention about how they aren't too shy in wanting to sell or basically resell some of their metals in order to come up with some extra funds, if need be, to get into the crypto sector. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, I mean, of course, it's just your opinion, so nothing serious, but the idea that the people have lost their first love in metals in the idea of going after the gains that could come from cryptocurrencies. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Well, 2017, man, cryptocurrency was the hot girlfriend that everyone wanted to be with, right? They were stuck with this, old lady, right? Gold and silver, and then this is hot girl that everyone wanted to be with. But so I definitely understand that. But that's a short-term mind mindset. You know, the fact is, we all wish in the middle of 2016 that our precious metals holdings and our crypto holdings were flipped, right? You know, we wish that we had, you know, whatever percentage of our portfolio in precious and crypto in 2016, and then that little speculation portion in crypto or in precious metals in 2016. And of course, our portfolios would have been much different going into 2017. We sell crypto and buy back precious metals now. I mean, that would have been the ultimate game plan, but you know, hindsight is 2020. As far as selling your precious metals now, I think you got to put them in different categories. I know that many people are looking at Bitcoin as this sound money vehicle, and for some people it is. It's, especially if you're someone in Venezuela or Argentina, you've seen massive currency devaluation. You're better off holding Bitcoin than you are, you know, the peso, the Argentinian peso, or the Venezuelan bolivar. So, you know, that was a safe haven. But, you know, for us here in the US, we've dealt with a level of stability in the US dollar where, you know, Bitcoin going from 12,000 to 20,000 back to 6,000, that's pretty volatile. You know, that's a huge change in purchasing power to deal with. So I totally get that. But look, I think right now, you know, we've been in this bear market for precious metals for some time now, quite a long time now. And eventually that's going to change, you know, especially with all this optimism we're seeing with the Trump economy. People are really excited about the stock market. They're excited about, you know, companies bringing billions of dollars back. There's this jobs boom. You know, if you look at the headline numbers, you know, even, you know, the U6 numbers are doing okay when you look at them. But because of that, we're seeing this, you know, there's no safe haven play. And I think that's a very contrarian way to look at it. You know, we're really capitulating in the precious metal sector. And if you can, you know, have the wits to buy the dip, I think that's a really good idea. You know, I don't think you can go wrong. You know, it feels very hard to purchase gold right now when you buy the S&P, right? You know, you can purchase something that's continuing to go higher.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what markets do. Markets have a way of washing and rinsing investors. And if you can really take your emotions out of it and look at a chart and say, you know, what is the prudent decision? You know, you might consider buying precious metals now, as difficult as that might be.
Yeah, I look at it in some ways, it's a matter of trying to have the best of both worlds. Are you chasing profit or are you chasing wealth preservation? And so it's just finding a happy medium according to probably your financial situation, because some people can afford more risk than others. But, you know, as long as you're on the, and one of the things I often use here is the idea of like, you know, get your weight up. As long as you're heavy, when this monetary storm comes through, you'll be less likely to be blown away, whether it be in paper or in digits, if you're sitting on something heavy in the form of metals, as well as other tangible assets that are, you know, in the earth, from the earth, or on the earth, or attached to the earth more so. But
let me say something. It kind of hit me just a month or so ago. The concept of savings. You know, we're always looking to grow our wealth, and that's a powerful thing, and we'll constantly try to do that. But, you know, if you go back, what, hundreds or thousands of years, for instance, you know, this concept of savings, the only savings there really was, you know, hunting and gathering and putting some food away for the winter. There wasn't really this concept of, you know, preserving your purchasing power and containing it for years and years to come. And so we take for granted just preserving that purchasing power, not growing it, but just keeping it. Just that little concept. I mean, that is something that has evolved over time. And I think if we can just wrap our minds around that, you'll appreciate just saving money and the beauty of what that is, all in of itself.
Now watch this. So that right there, that concept of saving money has been, as you mentioned, it goes back ages. Just saving something for the future, saving future energy now so that you use it when you need it, type of thing. But here's the thing, and one thing I I try to mention as much as I can when it comes to mine is just distinguishing between, because we mentioned saving money, but in actuality, we're saving fiat currency in the conventional sense. We're putting digits or paper into someone's institution and expecting some type of return from that usually. And so to break it down even further, I tell people to understand the difference between sound money and fiat currency. And once you understand monetary history, you'll be a little bit more, you'll probably understand the importance of distinguishing having metals and as opposed to having a lot of currencies, because i.e. what's happening in Venezuela and Argentina, those nations there, they were taught the same thing. Make sure you save for a rainy day. And their rainy day is right now because of hyperinflation. So, what do you think about the idea of just how we probably have to be a little bit more precise with using the words currency and money in that context there?
Absolutely. And, my family is actually from Argentina. My mom has stories of, having checks that she would be paid in, and then watching those checks go worthless on the way to the bank. And my grandfather constantly kept money in a mattress because he was always worried about, the bank taking adding a zero, but deflating the currency in his bank account and, freezing their accounts only to, watch it devalue by 30 or 40%, over the course of a very short time. So the fear of currency or the risk of currency is a very real thing in my own family. And you asked me at the beginning of the interview, where does a lot of my passion, a lot of my understanding for the economy stem from? A lot of it comes from my mother, who again came from Argentina and has dealt with, a corrupt government in firsthand. So I've heard these stories. So I've been very open to, reading and learning about this and understanding that, the dollar is not something that, we should put all of our faith in. I think you should have some dollars and use it to live, but it's not something that you want to heavily hold and assume that it's going to be around forever and that preserve your purchasing power for years and years to come. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and so since you just share with me the information about your family being from Argentina, I often speak about, I use a lot of references of my travels and whatnot. And so I actually have a 100 peso Argentina note right here that I got when I was down there like 2 years ago, whatever. And so I was telling people my story in relation to how important it is in distinguishing paper from sound money is the fact that this note years and years ago when I lived there, the ratio was like 3-to-1, and now today it's 29-to-1. So it went from being $33 when I was using it and living good off this thing to now being worth $4. So that is a lot of purchasing power within 10 years. So most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't think it can happen to the dollar. So give me your thoughts on that. Like, do you see a time, because it's been a slow process with the Federal Reserve note, but what are your thoughts on the idea that the dollar perhaps itself could go sub-zero as far as purchasing power, i.e. hyperinflation? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, isn't it crazy to see these currencies just go to nothing? I got $100 trillion Zimbabwe. You probably have one too.
Yeah, I got one right.
And I look at these things and I go, wow, that used to be on par with the US dollar at some point. And, I'm holding something that, would have made me the richest man on earth by a lot. If you just went back so many years ago and it had the value of, what it did in the 80s, for instance. Yeah. But so my thoughts, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So the thoughts were in regards to the dollar, reference to the dollar.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people say, "Oh, it'll never happen to the dollar. It'll never hyperinflate. The dollar's going to be around." And don't talk like that. I would turn the channel because this guy is on. He's lost his mind. That's what a lot of people tend to do.
Well, we got to remember that no fiat currency has stood the test of time, and that's absolutely happening. We've constantly seen the US dollar deteriorate as it's gotten off the gold standard, slowly in the 1930s, and then it did it again completely in the 1970s. And, here we are 45 years later, we're due for a new currency, and we're all talking about it. But here's the deal. The US hasn't really had real competition. So, when there's problems around the world, there's not a whole lot of places that people can go yet or feel confident going yet. So, the dollar is artificially supported at the moment. But we know that Russia, we know that China, we know that Asia is preparing for something. We see that happening, with the Shanghai Gold Exchange. We know that they're accumulating precious metals, and every time another part of the world rises in their purchasing power, they chip away a little bit at the US. And ultimately, we're going to get to a point where people can opt out of the US, whether it's going to be partially into China, partially into precious metals, partially into cryptocurrencies. Eventually, I think we are going to get to a point that people do opt out of the dollar in a significant way, and things really do unravel, and the Fed does go into that spiral of having to print and having to purchase its own treasuries, having to raise interest rates like crazy to attempt to capture investors, to get people to buy the dollar. So I think that's happening, but because of the fact that we haven't seen a lot of competition, it's artificially supported what we know as the US dollar, and it is the safe haven right now, conventionally.
Muted my microphone.
Okay, no worries.
I can sneeze, but no. So yeah, so Kenneth, I appreciate you sitting down, man. This has been some great chat. I want to get back to AI a little bit more because I'm curious. And so I think I saw someone mention in there in regards to opportunities. Like from what you're aware of, are there any opportunities that's probably in the ground root phase now where people can get involved and learn and probably figure out a way to make some money or just give me some ideas on what people can do right now, some action steps that will be worthwhile that people can get ahead of the curve or the trend, as you mentioned earlier.
So, Mike, we're announcing our #1 pick at Crush the Street for artificial intelligence here in 2018. I don't want to mention the stock. I want people to go and get the report.
Mm-hmm.
They can get it at crushthestreet.com/live. If you go there, you'll instantly read about it, and you can learn about what people are doing. And it's all about, as much as I think people or robots are getting smarter and smarter, it's going to take people and backing the right people to make sure that you're in front of the trend. I think people that have current businesses, own HVAC companies, are plumbers, or are drivers, if you can start using and wrapping your minds around ways to implement AI to be more efficient, I think you're going to be ahead of the trend, because what's going to happen is you're going to see labor get expensive on you. If you're an entrepreneur and you're depending on people, as bad as this sounds, as bad as it is for the people that depend on this, if you're an entrepreneur and you're depending on constantly using human labor, those that are being more efficient than you are going to surpass you. And, even from a country perspective, and I'll add this in here, I believe that artificial intelligence is going to be similar to the nuclear arms race. Countries are going to be demanding AI. And if you consider, Japan and China, with their very top heavy demographics, a bunch of old people and not enough of a new generation to replace the older generation, all these entitlements that are promised. I believe that not just immigrants that are going to be needed to take these jobs. I think artificial intelligent robots are going to be used to fill this gap of people, this worker shortage that are going to be prevalent in many of these countries with very top heavy demographics. So it's going to be about being in front of the trend. I think countries are going to want to be in front of the trend. I think you're going to want to be in front of the trend as a worker. I'm a parent of a 4 and a 2-year-old. I'm very concerned, to a certain degree, of what I need to teach and what will be relevant in the next 10 to 15 years for my children who are just, learning their letters and colors and things like that right now. So I think it's going to be a very powerful thing. I think if you can get a job in artificial intelligence right now, I think you can make a lot of money. There's stories right now that people are making $500,000 out of college, and because there's such a shortage in artificial intelligence. That's actually true in blockchain as well. You know, I'm not sure exactly if things have changed much in the last couple months, but I know during the hype, you know, December, January, I was hearing stories left and right of people who were making $500,000 if you were a developer in the crypto space or blockchain, because there's such a shortage of people who know what to do in this space. So it's always about being nimble, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. Be nimble and open to learning, because it's not going to be this world that's slow changing as we go forward here. We're outpacing Moore's law. And if you're familiar with Moore's law, that's you know, the speed of computers, the transistors, you know, getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you know, the capacity, their efficiency doubling every 18 months. And we've gotten to the atomic level now with these transistors. We've literally hit a physical boundary. But right when we did that, now we have quantum computing, where we've gone beyond this physical boundary, and really there's no stopping it. So you're going to definitely want to be informed, stay up to speed. And I hope with this interview and with this discussion, people are at least opening up their minds to, you know, what is to come, and, you know, at least open to things changing drastically here going forward.
Yeah, I do agree. Kenneth, it's been great having you join us, my friend. Unfortunately, like typically we got a more of a live audience. I'm very disappointed in you guys for not calling in with some good questions for Kenneth. And so I feel kind of like they did us wrong tonight, but it's okay, because they were well educated and informed on what's happening. And so, Kenneth, I put a link to that information you gave us in the little chat, but I also included down below for people to get a chance to go there and get educated, man. The biggest thing is education gives you knowledge, then knowledge gives you power. And with power, you can make more choices. So that's key. So, Kenneth, once again, thank you for joining us on RTD Live Talk. It was great having you on. Look forward to continue to follow what you do over at crushstreet.com, as well as to have you on the future as we get more into this AI development stuff. And as always, you're welcome to come back if any new technologies or anything come about that we need to know about. So I'm going to hold you as my AI guy to come back and educate us.
Cheers, Mike. Appreciate the time, and I appreciate the conversation.
Very good. Very good. So everybody, that is a live stream for this evening. Thank you for tuning in. Also, if you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you share this video so your friends can find out about artificial intelligence, because they're going to need to know what's happening with them and their workforce and everything like that, because it will impact their pockets at the end of the day. And give me a subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you visit Crush the Street on YouTube, as well as crushstreet.com, and show Kenneth some love over there as well. So other than that, everybody have a good evening, and I will see you guys later.